Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. Yeah, I didn't do the fancy music to open up the show this time. Hey, changed it up just a little bit. But on this episode of Touring the AFC South, I brought on somebody that I literally listen to all the time talking about NFL and the way people dress and talking about gallivanting in New York City with Charlie. Yes, that would be Domonique Foxworth. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm happy that we were able to make this work out. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just thank you again for coming on and, man, going through this wild AFC South. But, before we get into that, nothing can be wilder than what happened with Micah Parsons getting traded to the Green Bay Packers of all teams.
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to be the team. I'm looking up the deal. It's what 3 or 4 years? I can't remember, 3 or 4 years. $136 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
You trade Kenny Clark, which is pretty much an all-pro defensive tackle, and 2 first-round picks to Dallas for Micah Parsons. And now you can't deny that the Green Bay Packers are a Super Bowl contender in my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I don't want to be like a prisoner of the moment and a lot of hyperbole and reacting to this, because I felt like they were like an attractive Super Bowl pick, but not like a front runner. But adding Micah Parsons, like, it has to do something. Like, they have to go up a level because their defense was good before. They got Rashawn Gary, which I assumed was going to be part of the package because he would be somewhat of a replacement for Micah Parsons. But I know the Cowboys really want to address that run defense more than anything. But having Rashawn Gary still there, Micah Parsons on the other side, and a solid defense to start with, an offense that had injury concerns with the quarterback and some receivers. But when they're healthy, or at least when the quarterback's healthy, that offense is really, really good. He's one of the best in the league. So I think this is trouble for the already very difficult division that they're in. What is it, NFC North? It's going to be tougher for them. I'm sure that Jared Goff has wished that they could have taken one more week to get this deal done, because I think they got the Lions in week 1, and Micah, it's enough time, I think, to for his back to start feeling better and get after that quarterback.
Right. Yeah. Suddenly his back is going to be feeling excellent in Green Bay.
I've heard that about back issues. Back tightness loosens up when you rub some fresh money on it. It gets a little looser.
Right. And it's just with I don't know if you caught any of the Jerry Jones press conference, but he talked about how trading away Micah Parsons is going to help them become better. How?
Yeah, on my show, I tried my best to, because I assumed that everyone would be critical of Jerry Jones, because we've all been critical of him up until this point. So I tried my best to make some sort of argument for why this was a good thing or a smart move. And I just couldn't do it, because if you wanted to blow up your roster, because it's fair to say that maybe this team isn't as close as we want to assume that the team is, that's a reasonable assertion. And the Commanders are on the rise. The Eagles don't really have a hole in their roster. Okay, it's time to regroup. But you got to do that in March, like before the draft, and you can get more value. And it's really concerning too, because they have a quarterback who's nearing the end of like his peak play, who's getting injured more often. And I would say around 35, there's some aberrations, obviously, quarterbacks that play great beyond that, but around 35, quarterbacks start to like tail off a little bit, and Dak has 3 years to go, and you're trading away the guy who, like, we saw the numbers when he's on the defense, they're a lot better than when he's not on the defense, and you're trading that guy away in hopes that you can get something close to his value with 2 picks, the combination of Kenny Clark and 2 picks that are likely, because the Packers are good, those picks are going to be in the 20s. Those are not going to be high picks, and maybe you get lucky, but it's hard to find someone as valuable as Micah Parsons that late in the draft.
Definitely. I just the whole way this thing was handled was just kind of strange to me, from negotiating with the player, which Jerry said he would do again in the press conference, by the way. And just the whole way this thing was handled, I don't know what to say about Jerry Jones. And all I can say for Dallas fans is I'm sorry, because in the last 8 months, you've had two of the best players in both franchises' history traded away, and not even I can't even say anything about it. I'm just Dallas fans. I'm sorry.
I mean, this is one of the
All I got.
another. It's another example of why the owner shouldn't be the GM, because like the GM negotiating a contract, it's okay. You get personal, you get your feelings hurt, you get mad, and you're like, man, I'm gonna show them. But that's when the owner shows up and says, hey, get your feelings out of this. You're gonna have to step aside and we're gonna get this deal done. There's nobody there, like there's no adult in the organization. If Jerry gets his feelings hurt, then there's no one there to say, like Steven has to step up and be like, look, man. But I mean, you can't really do that, which I understand. Like Jerry Jones ain't gonna listen to nobody. He feels like, I don't know if you watched that documentary on Netflix, but he feels so responsible. And I mean, to some degree, deserves a lot of credit for things that have happened there, but he feels so responsible and so much ownership. He can't abide anyone showing him anything that he interprets as disrespect.
Oh boy, Dallas fans, yeah, you're in for a long one. You might want to sign those transfer portal papers, perhaps. But they might want to sign that transfer portal papers. Yeah, they might want to. But let's not talk about, I guess, Dallas anymore, because they're going to get their share of lumps over the Labor Day weekend. So I want to move on. Talk about the number one overall pick, who hasn't really been talked about that much, is Cameron Ward. Now, of course, Cam Ward is the number one overall pick, but a lot of people don't really talk about him. So, to me, I think he's a very, very excellent player, very smart guy, very confident in his abilities when you talk to him. So, to me, I wonder what he's going to do, what kind of the regular season being around the corner, what all the level of expectation is for him. I know some think he's going to be great. He's going to come out here and just hit the ground running. Others think it's going to be highs and lows that go along with it. What are kind of your thoughts about potentially what Cam Ward could be with this Tennessee Titans team?
Yeah, my expectations are high, which is probably not fair considering the history of first-round quarterbacks and number one overall picks. It's really hard to do. I think I can look at some of the recent years. It seems as though we have more of these quarterbacks that come in ready than we've had in the history of football, which like might be a result of us like professionalizing earlier and earlier, and these guys getting more and more reps and getting more and more exposure. But Cameron Ward was not a guy who was like in these like elite 11 camps. Like he ran his offense in high school was like a wing T, an option power, and like he doesn't fit into that category. So it's something about him that is special. But I do think it's nice to have that optimism around a team. And the reason why I have higher expectations is because the people in the building do, and they know, and they're never going to say anything negative about their guy. But the way that they're talking about the way that he's playing right now and the things that they can throw at him suggests to me that they won't be surprised, and they have high expectations. Similar to like I'm in DC. We kind of started hearing it about Jaden Daniels before it happened. I can't guarantee that anything's going to happen, but there's a different feel around programs when you know that you have a guy like that. And it feels like the way they're talking about Ward, he's going to be one of those guys.
Yeah, we got a comment in the Touring the AFC South inbox from Vincent Thomas. He's a poised rookie that has slowed the game down with his eyes. That's a great trait to have. Definitely can notice those different things, and he doesn't feel like he's rushed out there on the field when you're watching him.
Yeah, no, he feels comfortable, and the confidence that you're talking about, he plays with it. It feels genuine. I think you often see guys, it's one thing about being a leader. There's a ton of different ways that you can lead, but they all have to be authentic to you. Like not everyone's going to be loud, not everyone's going to be rah-rah, but when you try to be a leader based on what you hear or what you see, how it's supposed to be a leader, people see through it. And that's one thing that I know I've heard about Ward at Miami and at Washington State, and now with the Titans. he's just genuine. His confidence is real, and it's easy to follow someone whose confidence is real, and then their ability backs it up. It seems like he's special, and I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm rooting for him, obviously, rooting for everybody, but him especially. I think it's going to be really cool, and if it works out for him, if he can show up and just give that franchise a whole new life.
It's definitely a special story from, like you mentioned, Incarnate Word to Washington
Mhm.
State to Miami. Definitely going to be special indeed. His journey has been special indeed. But speaking just Titans fans, and some players are kind of the feel around the Titans is pretty much interesting. In terms of the attention that they don't receive. Some fans are like, you know, they just like, the media doesn't like them or all those type of things, and they have this like us against the world mentality. So to me, the number one overall pick usually would get a lot of attention, and it seems like just he hadn't gotten a lot of attention this year in terms of being the number one overall pick. So why do you think it is that Nashville and just the Tennessee Titans don't really get a lot of attention when it comes to NFL team?
Yeah, I
Even when
mean,
they're
I don't know.
good, even when they're good, they
Yeah.
don't. I would say.
I don't know. It's a lot harder for me to explain, honestly. Like I hadn't given it a whole bunch of thought. What confuses me about that, and it happens for a lot of fan bases, is why do they care? Like with the way that the modern and like with the way that modern media is, if you want to know about your team, it ain't hard to get access to it. Like and I guess it's just more about like they demand the respect, because I don't have a hard time finding information about any team. It's out there. Um, I could try to figure out or try to guess why you're not getting the attention that you're supposed to get, or that you feel like you deserve. But it's probably just there are franchises. I guess there are franchises that have been around for a long time and mean something more to the rest of the country than the Tennessee Titans do. And I think when something happens with one of those franchises, those will automatically be a little bit more interesting, because even if people aren't fans of those teams have like some longer history and a memory and like a feeling. Like when you say the Cowboys, everybody feels something. Everyone thinks about the Cowboys in some way. And the Titans haven't built that up. And it's through no fault of their own. That comes with time. It comes from like extended track record of success. But like I grew up in Baltimore, and the Ravens have been pretty good, but they also they feel like they don't get respect. I think all fan bases feel like they don't get respect. It's like part of being a fan, right? We not getting enough respect. Nobody watching us, talking about us. The Eagles last year were talking about nobody getting no respect, which is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it's quite funny to me. Like that, I have the same thoughts as you have. I'm
Mhm.
like, who cares if they're talking about us? If we're holding the trophy at the end of the year,
Yeah.
what does it matter? But it is what it is. And I had to ask from an outside perspective, because I'm like, Titans fans, they say this all the time, and I see it all the time around Nashville. So definitely
Yeah, I
had to
mean
ask that one.
they have a fair complaint this year. You got the number one overall pick, who everyone is also saying is really good, and they're right. It doesn't. If this was a different city, I could, like, if the Steelers had the number one overall pick, we would definitely be talking about it more on TV. I can't disagree with him on that. I don't know why it happens the way it does, but it's also like he's going to play really interestingly, but like everything else around him is just like kind of like, yeah, hey, he's really good. All right, let's see him do it. Then we'll show up. We'll do all types of pieces on it. We'll do big, long, hour-long exposés on how great he is once he starts off the season 8-0. You got my guarantee.
I hear you there. I hear you there. Now, of course, we got to talk about the team that's predicted to win the division. That would be the Houston Texans. Now, as far as the Houston Texans, man, the offensive line, they did a lot of damage there in terms of what it was last season and what it was this offseason. They don't have uh Shaq Mason is gone. They traded Laramie Tunzel to the Washington Commanders, traded Kenyon Green to the Philadelphia Eagles to get CJ Gardner Johnson, drafted Ariante Ursary, who more than likely is going to start at one of the tackle spots. Bring in Cam Robinson, which Jaguars fans
Yeah.
They're very happy right now because they've seen him and they didn't like what they saw when he wore their jersey.
Right.
So, and then you got Lakin Tomlinson. He was been in the league for a long time. I'm just going to leave it at that. And of course, the center, Jake Andrews, tore his meniscus for the New England Patriots last year, and then pops up, and now he's the starting center for the Houston Texans. So, they redid the line, but is it one you really have confidence in compared to, a rebuild of a line that you'd be like, okay, cool. They brought in some guys to do some work.
Yeah, it's not the same as some of the other, like the Chiefs made some improvements and the Bears made some improvements to those areas, and it seems like it's pretty obvious how this was an upgrade. It feels more like the Texans made some changes, which like doesn't mean that it's not going to be better. I think one thing that we underestimate and underappreciate about offensive line play is it's a lot about cohesion, and individual talent, of course, matters. It always matters, but it's also about ability to work well together. That's something that you'll find with like picking up stunts, understanding what direction to slide the line based on the opponent's formation. And the quarterback, another year of experience, the quarterback can help you with that and making those decisions and helping the line get set. So I think that's the way to give it some optimistic spin. But you're right, it was clear that that was an area of need, and I'm not sure that they made the big changes that their fan base would want. But you still, I mean, you have a special guy at quarterback, and as tough as last year was for the Texans, he still looked really good to me. Even in bad games, it felt like there were things, or not, it felt like it was clear that he made some mistakes, but there were some things around him that were failing, and it wasn't always on him for a problem. I don't think last year's slump for the Texans is indicative of any misunderstanding of the value that you have at quarterback. You still got him under that contract. You're still in good shape. Hopefully you can use some of that space to get some more help and improvement across that offensive line.
Yeah, definitely they need some help there. But you mentioned CJ Stroud. Of course, last year 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions his rookie season. Now I know you said that a lot of it wasn't, necessarily him in terms of even in bad play. Because he was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, because I mean the O line was that bad. But some of the decisions looking at it, I'm like, it did make me scratch my head a little bit. So, changing up the offense this year, he's a little bit more control at the line of scrimmage. You bring in the Jaden Higgins, you bring in Christian Kirk. Do you think he kind of rebounds this year in terms of just maybe a newer offense when he's more under control of things that are going on as opposed to last season?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the issues with this offense was like variety and predictability. I think that if they can address that, that'll take some of the pressure off of him. I think his numbers and his performance his rookie year, I think we overreacted on how good it was. It was great for a rookie, but then we saw how Jaden Daniels played as a rookie, and Jaden Daniels played great for any player. And I think that we probably overreacted on one end early in Stroud's career, and I think there is some overreaction on the other end after his second season. I think that he'll be better this year than either of his first two seasons. Will he be able to overcome some of the issues in the offensive line? And maybe the offensive line isn't as bad because of the continuity concerns and understanding working together. Those things might improve the offensive line. And a healthy Nico Collins for an extended period of time would definitely help this offense out. But effective rushing attack, like I feel like there are some like go-to things that feel like you're mailing it in, but it's also like some things about football never change. And if you can find ways to take pressure off
Mm-hmm.
of the quarterback, you'll get a better version of him. And I think that's what a diverse play call is. A well-managed game that runs plays in order to set up other plays. And this team is not going to be an offensive juggernaut. They are going, if they go far, it's going to be on the back of that defense. That defense is what's going to be the strength of this team. And you're going to have CJ Stroud to help you prevail in close games and 2-minute drills and those sorts of things. But this team is not constructed to win shootouts. They're constructed, I think, to play defense. And uh, they did that incredibly well last year, and I expect that to be the same thing this season.
Now, one thing I didn't mention is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's got a foot injury. He's going to be out for the
Right.
first 4 weeks
Yep.
and probably longer. And, of course, D'Amico Ryans didn't necessarily like the speculation when it came to Mixon and his injury. But I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, you kind of didn't help any of the speculation either. He said, oh, he'll be ready for the game week 1. And then he's out 4 games. It's kind of a wild swing there. And then now you don't know. So it just, to me, honestly, just from what I understand, there's a possibility that he won't be back for a while. And if that happens, that means you've got Nick Chubb and a bunch of other guys, and you're hoping and praying that they all fit in there, which that'll be quite interesting when it comes to CJ Stroud and that offense to me.
Yeah, and I mean Nick Chubb is a name that we all know and respect, but it's not prime Nick Chubb. I'm not sure how much of the load that you can expect him to carry. You can look at the rest of the division and feel like you are strong as far as the quarterback is concerned, which is the most important position. I'm not sure about the rest of this offense. You got Nico Collins, who's a standout, exceptional, but it's hard to be optimistic about the rest of the offense relative to the rest of the division. But again, you have the best quarterback, or you have the best player at the most important position, which is the positive way to approach this season. And you have a defense that won't let you be out of any games. So I think that's how they have to approach this season, is the expectation that the defense is going to keep them in games and make plays to put them in situations. And CJ Stroud, who always was really good at getting big chunks, that's one of the things that is more like the advanced analytics will show you, like the most predictive stat for winning in many cases is like big plays. If you can get big plays, if you can create big plays and eliminate big plays, which CJ Stroud is capable of doing and that defense is capable of doing, you'll perform well. And I think that this team can do both of those things.
Yeah, definitely. You spoke of that defense. You got Will Anderson Jr., which is a potential defensive player of the year candidate there. He's a dark horse for some people. You got Daniil Hunter, you got Derek Stingley Jr., you got Caleb Bullock, you got CJ Gardner-Johnson, you got Jalen Petrie. I mean, you've got a lot of guys out there. I mean, people may not like their linebackers, but I think their linebackers are good too. You got Azeez Al-Shire, you got Henry Tuatua, you got Christian Harris. If he's healthy, he can be a difference maker too. So you got all these guys. You got Lassiter on the other side of Derek Stingley Jr. I mean, can this defense be a top 5 defense, if not the top defense in the NFL, in your opinion?
I think that's the expectation. I mean, I think we're starting with Lassiter and Stingley. You got cornerbacks that can give you the flexibility to do anything, and you got Gardner Johnson and Al-Shire, who have a different level of intensity and physicality. You got 2 ends, like you mentioned, with Anderson and Daniil Hunter, that both can get after the quarterback. There aren't very many weaknesses on this defense, and they have groups of players that create problems. They can approach games in a multitude of ways. Like, they have the corners to be able to be aggressive and blitz if that's what they want to do, and they have the ends to be able to sit back in zone or double cover or tilt coverages to take away different things, and they have the corners to be comfortable with putting CJ in the box to slow down the run. Like, I think that this team has the talent to be flexible in a number of different ways. I think this defense, you're right, it feels like, because some things are random, we can't say that they'll be for sure the best defense in football, but I think they have a chance to be the best defense in football, and I'd be shocked if they're outside of the top 5 by the time the season's over.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't mention that CJ Gardner-Johnson, of course, they're still checking out his knee. They haven't set a timetable on his return, but even with that, still have a lot of talent on that defense. And it's going to be interesting just to see what all they're able to do. Of course, Domonique Ryans is still running that defense, even though he's the head coach. He's not giving that up at all.
Yeah, and I
But
mean,
of course, we got to mention another team.
Soul of it.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They shouldn't. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I want to kind of talk about now a team that is very, very interesting. That would be the Indianapolis. Nice, of course, a change at quarterback, perhaps. And of course, now they have Daniel Jones installed as the starting quarterback of this team. That was a nice little decision there that was made. Honestly, I think it's going to be a dink and dunk offense. Alec Pierce picked the wrong year to be a free agent afterwards, and Jonathan Taylor could potentially have an MVP season as he watches Saquon Barkley tapes. What do you think of this offense just with Daniel Jones manning the show?
I might surprise you, but I am feeling good about this offense. I think we start with the offensive line. They have a good offensive line. That's a something that Daniel Jones is not accustomed to. And then you go to the weapons. They have a great collection of weapons, from Pierce to Pittman to Taylor, as you mentioned, and then Warren, the rookie at tight end. It's like a really good collection. Again, something Daniel Jones is not accustomed to. And I'm not arguing that Daniel Jones is a great quarterback who was held back by the Giants, but I do think that we never really saw how good he could possibly be because of the Giants. You're right. It might be some dink and dunk, but you have the players that dink and dunk could work. Like there's some players that you get the ball out of hands quickly to these type of weapons, and it could work. I think you combine Daniel Jones' running ability. I know it's not quite Anthony Richardson, but he is a good athlete. We saw his best season was built upon his ability to run in New York. I think this offense may not be one of the top ones in the league, but I think it'll be a top half of the league offense, and it has the potential to be better than that. And I think a lot of that is relying on how good Shane Steichen is, which I thought Shane Steichen was a great offensive mind when he was in Philadelphia. It hasn't panned out consistently in Indianapolis, and maybe this is the season that it happens. As much as I like the ceiling on Anthony Richardson, I understand the decision, man. Like I get it. I get the decision because it was just too inconsistent. And it wasn't even that. I was talking to my son actually about this earlier because he's strongly opposed to, like, he's not a Colts fan. I don't know why he has strong opinions on this, but he was very opposed to the Daniel Jones decision. And I was like, well, the thing with Anthony Richardson is not just that he has really great plays and then some bad plays, is that some of the bad plays are things that seem routine. It's not even like he makes a terrible decision and throws an interception in a tight coverage, which obviously that happens too. It's that a 5-yard hitch, like he might overthrow that. and then like we're at a disadvantage now. Now it's 2nd and 10 when it should be 2nd and 5. And those type of things I think build up, especially if you're trying to run an offense. We need you to be able to hit the easy, like air quotes, like nothing is easy in football, but we need you to be able to do the routine things well. If you can do the routine things well, and then you give us these big booms, and occasionally we get a big mistake, we can live with that. We can grow with that. It's a lot harder to grow when I feel like I can't even count on you to do like simple stuff sometimes.
Yeah, totally understand. But yeah, I'm very interested. And then, of course, I want to go back to just, you mentioned the decision to go with Daniel Jones. One thing that I think it's very much tied to is the careers of Steichen and Chris Ballard. Now, Chris Ballard, it almost seems like he's a cat because he has 9 lives in Indianapolis, and they just will not get rid of him at any point in time, no matter who wants to yell, scream, whatever. Just seems like he's still there. But Shane Steichen, I think with the handling of how they kind of handled things from the beginning with Anthony Richardson, I have questions about.
Yeah.
And going into this year, I'm like, okay, their seat is a little hot, if not, a little bit more than hot in Indianapolis. And I think this year is big for them. I mean, how hot do you think their seat is there? I mean, honestly, I think their seat is very hot. And I think that if they don't win this year or at least come close to making the playoffs, they're both gone, in my opinion.
I mean, I think it's hard to judge because like we don't have much of a track record with like the next generation of Ursay's. Like, I'm not sure what they want to do, but that could also be like, well, they want to make their stamp with their own general manager and head coach. But I think you're right. Like, this could be kind of a make or break year with them. I don't see it's hard to find good evidence to support it. And to your point about Anthony Richardson, like, yeah, part of the reason why we're in the situation we are now with Anthony Richardson is because of the decisions that were made in order to like draft him and play him sooner than any of us thought he'd be ready to play.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just interesting in Indianapolis to me. When it comes to Shane Steichen and how they handle everything, it just made me shake my head, kind of just the decisions and how it went along. But I do have to talk about the defense though, because of course they went from a vanilla defense from Gus Bradley's going to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna line you up here. You're gonna see where you are, and you're just gonna beat it." To the Lou Anaromo defense, where anything can happen. It's almost like you're playing poker out there when he's coaching. But definitely he's got the guys to do it. He's got a defensive backfield now with Xavier Howard, a guy he's familiar with, Mooney Ward. He's got he traded for a guy Blackman, tried for Blackman from Cam Bonham. Definitely the guy. I'm looking forward to all the dances he's going to come up with after turnovers, by the way. And I'm looking at Kenny Moore, who's could be his Mike Hilton on this team. And Mike Hilton, who got waived by the Miami Dolphins, by the way. But what do you think of just this change of just going with a guy that's more unpredictable as opposed to a Gus Bradley that's just very, very vanilla as a defensive coordinator? I mean, I absolutely love it for Indianapolis and Indianapolis Colts fans. But I mean, what are your thoughts on just what all Lou Anaromo brings?
Yeah, I mean, I think that those type of defenses, trying to find the right way to explain this. To me, it seems like those are the defenses that have more extremes, like because it's less dependent on individual talent and more dependent on execution. And you can, if you execute well and you have great individual talent, those defenses can overachieve. So I would say that a more unpredictable, a riskier style of defense is kind of like a multiplier, and it could make your defense perform better than the talent suggests, or it could make your defense perform worse than the talent suggests because of like poor execution and out of position. I think the Vikings are a good example from last year of a team that was like that. The Cardinals are another good example where they're like unpredictable things. I think the Seahawks are a great example where it took a second for them to figure it out. Like early in the season, it's like, no, there's a lot more talent than we're seeing results on the field. Then they figure it out by the end of the year, like, man, this team is really great. So I think that it's kind of a cop out in not being able to fully predict how well it's going to be, but I don't think it's going to be. I like to be positive about it, especially at this point in the season. I would rather be a part of a defense like that than a vanilla defense where it's just like, our guys are better than your guys. We're just going to line it up, because these defenses are looking for advantages, trying to create confusion and opportunities, which I like.
Got you. Yeah, we're here having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're all good. Let's see. Yeah, I'm interested just to see how this Colts team turns out, just with all the different little changes they've made, and bringing in a Bonham Award. A Josh Downs, I think, is going to be interesting. And how he gets his opportunities on offense as well. So, it's just going to be interesting to watch. But the one team that I think is the most intriguing team in the AFC South is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, you got Travis Hunter, you got Trevor Lawrence, you got all these different things. You got the Mr. Duval himself, Liam Cohen, which I hope he never does that and says Duval like that ever again in his life. And just all these different things you got going on in Jacksonville. I'm going to start with Travis Hunter, by the way. So I'm very intrigued to see him watch him play on both sides of the ball. And he missed the last preseason game precautionary with I guess a chest injury or something of that nature. Right. But he's back practicing and 100% full go. So Do you think he kind of starts the season going both ways a lot, or do you think he kind of eases him into moving both ways? But one thing I do think, I will tell you, one thing I do think is that the way he plays both ways is going to be dependent upon the health of Tyson Campbell. So if Tyson Campbell gets hurt early, like he always does, or gets injured at some point, I think that Travis Hunter is going to have to play defense just a little bit more than what they expected.
Yeah, I think we've started to come around to the idea that it could be week to week. Like we've talked about him, what I think we all kind of find hard to believe is that he'll play 80% of the snaps of a football game, both sides. I think it's hard to imagine that a guy can do that. He's going to end up game by game. There'll be more defense or more offense depending on the matchup. And there could be all defense one week or all offense the next week. I do think in week one, though, he'll be out there for the first series on offense and the first series on defense. And I don't think they traded up and drafted him in order to not make a kind of a statement. Like I think this first game is going to be a bit of a statement. He's going to be starting at corner, I would think, and starting at receiver. Then through the course of the game, I think there'll be different decisions made based on the series and the situation. But there also could be the situation where he could play corner for an entire game one week, and then the next week play in a nickel for an entire game, and that would, yeah, I think that's a reasonable way to do it. And it's also like he could play 30 snaps of defense, 30 snaps of offense. I think the assumption is that he can't physically do it. I think most people believe that he can mentally handle it, which I also think is kind of from a defense standpoint, the mental preparation it's serious, it's intense. So it's going to be hard. But if you reduce it to a normal amount of snaps, 60 or 70 snaps a game, you just split them between offense and defense, maybe it won't be as taxing on his body as I think a lot of us are concerned that it might be.
It's definitely going to be interesting to watch. I am very much getting my popcorn ready to watch this go down.
Sure.
But another thing I'm watching go down is Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence has been a roller coaster pretty much his entire career. I mean, he's had moments where he's looked great. He's had other moments I'm just like, nah, this ain't the number one overall pick. So to me, I don't think he's a generational quarterback like he was billed coming into the NFL, but I think he can be a solid quarterback. With Liam Cohen, of course, just to give you a little background, Liam Cohen gave Baker Mayfield his best year in the NFL, career high in touchdowns, passing yards, completion percentage, and QBR. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, Liam Cohen can tap into Trevor Lawrence and make him consistent and actually get him to that level of, maybe being the consistent to a little bit above consistent quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I mean, I think he can. I hope so for the Jags' sake and for Brian Thomas Jr.'s sake. But I think Liam Cohen deserves credit for the things that he was able to do with Baker Mayfield. But it was 1 year of Liam Cohen and Baker Mayfield. Like prior to that, it was Dave Canales, right? Who really was the guy who kind of rejuvenated Baker Mayfield, which got him a job in Carolina. And then Liam Cohen continued it and improved upon it. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we assume these offensive gurus are all like, I think we're disappointed with them more than we are like impressed when they go get hired somewhere else. Like more of them end up not solving whatever quarterback problems that they are drafted to, or that they are selected to solve. I think the thing about Trevor Lawrence, though, is the physical ability is there. Finding a way to create an offense that he understands and he can execute without thinking, because that's the tough thing with guys like that have the physical ability. It's like, how do we get past what's holding you back? And it's like the processing is that normally was holding back a guy like Trevor Lawrence. So finding a situation where the decisions and the answers are there and easy. If Liam Cohen can do that, and again, take pressure off of him so he can be great in small doses, then I think Trevor Lawrence will turn into he probably will never be the quarterback that he was billed as, because they were talking Elway stuff, but he could turn into a top of the league quarterback and get out of that, like that roller coaster that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster, and some Jags fans, They don't necessarily like me talking about their quarterback. And boy, oh boy, on 1010 XL in Jacksonville, I wasn't necessarily their favorite guy. But
be mad at you for telling
just
the truth.
looking at Jacksonville. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. They got mad at me for telling the truth, man. I couldn't, I can't believe it, but hey, it is what it is. I've got to ask, final question I have for you. The Jaguars, they have Josh Hines Allen, they have Trayvon Walker, they got depth at the running back position. They do have talented wide receivers. They're okay at cornerback. They give a couple injuries, it could get rough, and they're interesting at safety. But they're all together are a team that's talented enough to potentially win this division. Now, do you think it's potentially, potential that they can dethrone the Houston Texans in this division, perhaps?
Absolutely. I mean, we talked about the Texans to start. Like, there are definitely issues with the Texans. I think that this division, I think it's not as up in the air as some other divisions, but it doesn't feel like there's a clear front runner, especially when you have issues across the offensive line in Texans. Like, if you made me put some money on it, I think I'd have to go with the more proven commodity in the Texans, but I could see a lot of different things happening. I could see the Colts being competitive in this division because, again, I talk a lot about when I make my picks, the place that I start is with O-line. That's one of the things that you can't really compensate for. If you had a good O-line, I'm going to feel more confident about your unit. And the Colts, I think, probably have the best O-line in this division. So that's a good place to start. And then it's the quarterback after that. And then you go to Texans, have the best quarterback. So this division feels tough. I think the Texans defense is probably the best unit in this division. So I don't know. I hadn't really picked for this division, but I feel like I'm talking myself back into the Texans. And then we don't know how good Cam Ward's going to be. That could change things because their defense in Tennessee is pretty good too. I don't know. I guess you asked me if I think the Jags could dethrone the Texans. I think the Jags probably could, but I don't know that that's the team that I would pick.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be funny. Well, it's not going to be funny, but it's going to be interesting when Jacksonville and Houston play each other again, especially in Houston after especially in Jacksonville, I should say, after what happened last year. Boy, oh boy. Yeah. That was some wild stuff right there. And Alshir, I've actually interviewed him a few times when he actually was here playing with the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Mild-mannered guy, calm, always takes.
They always are. They always are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played with some guys like that. They always a chill.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, I'm a former college football player, so I definitely understand. So, yeah, playing, you always calm and cool in the locker room, and then to get on the field, total different person.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I just want to thank you for coming on, Domonique Foxworth. Thank you for giving us your time. Of course, I know you don't really be hanging out on the social medias like that. But so I would tell you that, hey, tell everyone where they can find you on social media. But hey, I'm like, you might not find him even if he's on social media.
Yeah, you won't find me in them streets. You can look me up, but I ain't gonna say nothing. I don't be tweeting or Instagramming. That ain't for me. I'm too old, man. But anyway, I appreciate you having me. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. That's Domonique Foxworth coming on the Touring the AFC South show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. You can follow the show on YouTube. Of course, go ahead and subscribe there. You can go to all the other listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. Of course, you can also follow me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE _general_MP. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.